Greetings from Minneapolis, United States, North America, Earth. I'm Luther Krueger, and I was infected with the solar cooking virus in 2004. I've been collecting solar cookers and the stories about and behind them for 2 decades. I have learned a lot. I would like to start my presentation with a pop quiz. You will not be graded, but you may be tested insofar as your grasp of the history of solar cooking is concerned. So who said this and when? We can ask why more solar cookers are not used in the less developed areas. This may sound familiar. Was it said recently? Where? The answer is J.E. Hobson, and he said it in 1955. In many endeavors, there truly is nothing new under the sun, and frustration over the adoption of solar energy for beneficial uses, perhaps especially solar cooking, has been expressed for at least 70 years. Along with the 90 cookers I've collected since 2004, I've also collected more than a dozen conference proceedings, and without fail, exasperation is often expressed. We are thankful that this conference and others have been assembled to eliminate that frustration by sharing the best practices related to promoting solar cookers in ways that infect people with the solar cooking virus. Adoption. How do we assure that people take this thing that we've handed them seriously and use it whenever the sun shines? I have been blessed to have met over 100 solar cooks in my home country of the United States and dozens across the world through my video series on YouTube. And from them, I've heard several answers which ring true. For the museum's video series, I usually ask the open-ended question, what do you see as the future of solar cooking? How do we reach those who need them the most and convince them to use the cookers? Many of these intrepid advocates expressed their best recommendations for promoting solar cookers in any region of the world. Like Dr. Hobson, most also lamented the overall low rate of adoption of solar cookers, especially in areas with the most urgent needs. But we have assurances from veterans in our movement that it is possible. It takes work. It takes education. It takes strategic thinking. From Pat McCardle and many others, I've learned that we can't just deliver cookers with the capacity of only one pot, and that dropping off cookers alone is not enough. It is necessary, but not sufficient. Without including the other 2 legs of the stool, namely efficient wood stoves and hay basket cookers, many inspired to start cooking with the sun will stop when the rainy season begins, or when they don't cook 2 dishes at once like they can on a 3-stone fire. From Tom Hallquist, I learned that one can practice what community organizers preach, that each one reach one is often more effective. It's wonderful to reach out to hundreds at a time, but one-on-one outreach can also be persuasive. Tom can fit 2 of his cookers in an extra suitcase, which helps to assure the cooker actually makes it through customs in many countries. From Crosby Menzies, I took to heart that one cultural barrier isn't built up by those we hope to infect with the virus. Rather, our own false assumptions about the communities we visit get in the way. Crosby, Jim LaJoy, and many others emphasize the need to promote quality, effective cookers. An inferior cooker sends the wrong message and might as well be part of the stack of t-shirts that find their way to developing nations after we in the developed world have discarded them. From Marge Evans DeCarpio and Jean Bethke of Solar Oven Partners, the scope of education and continued contact and presence in the area in need of solar cookers became clearer to me. Solar Oven Partners and Solar Household Energy both find a key factor in success was to find leaders with staying power, leaders who could establish and expand the outreach, training, and moral support necessary to see high rates of adoption. With these and many other lessons in mind, it is understandable that we think our efforts are doomed from the start. They are not doomed, but with each necessary but not sufficient step taken, the odds against success are stacked ever higher. As a community organizer for 30 years, I learned that one way of doing things is not the only way, and many strategies can be combined to create an effective program. The museum's Earthwide Solar Cooking Forum was relaunched in 2024 to discuss and document successes and failures of these activities so that veteran solar cooking promoters and those new to the work can learn as well. I was prompted to research this presentation by combing through the detailed interactive map created by Solar Cookers International. SCI relies on veteran solar cooks to self-report their promotional activities, specifically where they have brought their cookers. The vast majority of reporting parties are promoters of solar cookers overseas, though some individuals have reported single instances of cookers gifted or sold in some countries. This map generated this presentation's title. It is necessary and valuable, yet it is not sufficient. To be clear, this map should be maintained. Even better, revisions to its underlying data with symbol sets and clickable points would make this map universally valuable to any who visit SCI's site. Its value at present is historical. Over 700 reported drops of cookers have been reported, involving over 100 promoters. Each dot can be reviewed for the date the cookers were distributed, the organization or individual bringing the cookers, the number of cookers given or sold, and if available, the website for the distributor. Maintaining data for this resource is a challenge. Self-reported data must often be taken at face value. No reliable assumptions can be made as to the continued use of cookers. For example, panel cookers of the Cook-It era are not durable, and to actively use one for a year requires exhaustive maintenance. Box cookers fare better, but the more durable, the more expensive. The more expensive, the less likely box cookers will be the ones distributed to regions first considered for alleviating poverty or preventing deforestation. Less cost equates to lower longevity. Parabolic cookers can be had cheaply, but you get what you paid for. Poor quality metals, peeling reflective appliques, and unstable platforms take their toll on these generally durable cookers. A sampling of the 700 reports pegged to the map found that well over half netted no usable contact information for the distributors or a receiving organization. An educated guess is that no cooker can be considered actively used outside of 10 years in the field without tremendous support systems. Panel cookers made without durable materials are unlikely to last more than a year. Anecdotally, this avid solar cook has spoken to many cooker distributors who have returned to the destination regions only to find their cookers AWOL, inoperable, or scavenged for tools and accoutrements the recipients considered more valuable. This points to the difficulty in ascertaining whether 4.5 million cookers, as reported here, are currently in use. We celebrate the sheer volume while tempering our enthusiasm by facing the reality that hundreds of millions across the world are at risk for health problems from cooking fire smoke, unsafe drinking water, and catastrophes that follow deforestation. All the effort documented in this map was necessary and laudable, but the map is not enough in its current form. The good news is it can be made both more accurate and eminently more useful for anyone promoting solar cookers. In my career, I was tasked with using maps to discover crime patterns, to more effectively deploy police and city resources, but also, unique in our country, we used maps to recruit community partners who were often more empowered to address crime and livability issues or solve social problems in their own communities. With our experience creating maps for problem solving, community organizing, and strategic communications, the above concerns point to the following upgrades to this needed resource. We begin with the distribution map. This map can be considered a series of snapshots documenting the work of dozens of organizations. The points on the map represent the number of cookers sent to specific regions, or in many cases, the destinations are not represented, but rather the originating solar cooker maker or promoter. The size of the point gives the visual cue as to the volume of cookers distributed. The value of recording the history of our movement cannot be overstated. As Santayana said, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. By reminding us of the great strides forward in solar cooker promotion, SCI inspires others to continue and expand the work. From personal experience, even at these conferences, I've noted many who were unaware of work already being done. Some work that bore fruit and others that ended in failure. They had no memory to call up and so repeated the work for better or worse. We all know the expression, don't reinvent the wheel. So this map is necessary, a vital tool for our movement, but it is not sufficient. To illustrate one dot that tells only the first part of the story. Craig Shearer developed the Freedom Cooker in the early 1990s. By 1993, he began distributing the cooker through various channels, reporting that 3,600 or more were sent. But the dot shows his group's headquarters, not the dozens of nations where Solar Freedom International distributed his unique box cooker. Why is this important? Because an effective, durable cooker was made and distributed, and credit should be given where credit is due. While updating the map 23 years later may seem futile, it can be done with a limited number of the distribution dots and will better convey the increased presence of solar cookers in areas where they are most needed. The next series of layers I propose provide context for the cookers represented by the dots. The first and probably most important added layer represents the level of insolation throughout the year. What's worth noting is what every solar cooker proponent who's researched the highest priorities for distribution has said: get them where they're most needed. The sun does not shine equally throughout the world on any given day. One successful manufacturer made note of this in a recent meeting of the SRAG Rotary Group. He will not promote his own cooker in areas with healthy forests, high levels of rainfall, or cloud cover. He's found that it is too difficult to convince people when it's proportionately difficult to demonstrate the use of the cookers. Also, it can be safely said that if you live in an area that hasn't been denuded of trees and has relatively safe sources of drinking water, it isn't as urgent as it is for those who say, the trees run away from us, as they do in the southern part of Africa, and those that see the scourge of river worms and asthma. So this layer shows the regions that unequivocally deserve attention sooner and more aggressively than those with less sunlight to cook with. Layer 2. Yes, you can still cook with sunlight in these areas without a lot of sunlight. Yes, these forests aren't immune from profiteers who would take the short-term gain but create a long-term environmental problem. And while our advocacy advances the cause, while we inspire others to take up the work, and while our numbers appear to be growing, we haven't reached the tipping point where we don't need to prioritize our limited resources. So the combination of these two layers, if properly explained in the home base for this map, will help direct new cooker makers and promoters and individuals and church groups and Rotarians and climate activists to focus their work beginning with the most desperate regions. The third layer. Regions with high levels of pollution are known to be burning fossil fuels for energy production. Wildfires may also raise the hazards of respiratory illnesses. It has been recently reported that some areas already deforested are resorting to cooking fuel that is widely available. What is that fuel? Plastic trash. There is little doubt that this level of desperation is contributing to the toxic air everyone in the area is breathing. There is also little doubt that solar cookers provide a far healthier option for these families. You could say this is a third layer of prioritization for our efforts. Layer number 4. So far, we've seen layers that illustrate the problem. I would also urge the addition of more positive information. This would be represented by a layer to include potential community partners that cooker distributors can tap into. With the next layers, I ask you to take out a notepad and start writing up your to-do list. I'm asking you to follow up in your travels with these affinity groups and resources that we have barely tapped into. For instance, during many of my solar road trips, I was gratified to learn of the existence of makerspaces. Several solar cooker designers got their start or developed their cookers through their membership in these hotbeds of creativity. Well, if you've never heard of them, you're in luck. Make magazine keeps a current map of existing makerspaces around the world. Most large metropolitan areas have at least one makerspace. You can join them for a nominal monthly or annual fee. Most spaces have more than enough tools for tinkering with solar cooker designs. Most provide classes in the tools and crafts that their members partake of. All too often during my travels to meet solar cooks, a story starts with great promise but ends in disappointment. A key factor was uncommitted leadership in the region where cookers were shipped. Perhaps leaders can be found or mentored through these affinity groups. Some final thoughts. I don't need to remind everyone who's made it here to Marseille, whether in person or online, about the many problems in the world which motivate us to promote solar cooking. There is a level of desperation that needs to be conveyed to new cooker makers and promoters and is covered well in other presentations. This particular news story from February 2025 was like a stab to the heart for me. Here we see a dire situation in Kenya, previously referred to. Kenya is a nation that has welcomed the promotion of solar cooking to a higher degree than most countries. But the interests of charcoal makers and purveyors of expensive liquid propane subscriptions had driven many to cook with the most readily available fuel source, plastic trash. This is my firm opinion, and it is not shared by all those I've visited, but some, such as David Chalker, who successfully eliminated plastic from his hybrid cookers. Alain Biba started with the premise that his cooker should endure and be produced without reliance on plastic parts. I would like to live to see the day when we phase out the use of plastics in the cookers that we promote. There may be a way to find more sustainably recyclable materials that are inert relative to the potential harms that comes from their mining and production, and certainly far less risky to use than plastics. I would suggest a task force be formed to find ways to repurpose the other trash that would supply the local production of aluminum reflectors for solar cookers. This could be a cottage industry, as we call it here in the developed world, and it would displace the need for the plastic byproducts of petroleum. The skills required for this are not much greater than the simple repurposing of plastics, as detailed by my forum guest, Marco Bernardo. He focuses on cleaning up plastic trash on the beach and molds it into more permanent, useful items. It's still plastic. One reason I am pushing partnerships with makerspaces is that the maker ethos also refuses to accept limits on our creativity. My years as a community organizer led me to believe that limited resources can be overcome. And often, the limitation is illusory. The material that is needed is available. We just don't see it. Chris Hackett, legendary of the all-too-short-lived Madagascar Institute, a makerspace in New York City, coined the term obtainium. His observation is that obtainium is the most common element known to man. Aluminum from trashed beverage cans is abundant, and simple personal volume smelter plans are available online. Why not include this with an advanced education piece to supplement our integrated cooking toolbox? I'm not deluded into thinking that this can happen overnight, and I reluctantly agree that the economics of solar cooker manufacturing make plastics the quick, inexpensive choice, especially for the very useful and power-reflective panel cookers that are increasingly present in refugee camps, areas of conflict, disaster zones, and remote areas. This is necessary, but it is not sufficient to meet the challenges of the future. I just believe that the handwriting is on the wall, and we would do well to heed the warnings. These days, many municipalities, provinces, and even countries are restricting the manufacture and use of plastics, not just single-use items. Those of you who visited with me about your solar journeys know that I'm happy to continue these conversations and that I don't shy away from tough subjects. I just find that progress is made more quickly when we challenge assumptions while moving forward with improved tools at our disposal and a spirit of healthy debate concerning the opportunities before us. Thank you.